All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to DAO Talk. This is DAO Talk Weekly, episode 32, your one-stop shop for everything DAOs. I'm Tommy.
And I'm Frisson.
Welcome back. It's been a good week. DAO Talk Weekly, we're back. Sorry for my mic issues last week. I am back. Some rodent animal chewed through my mic cord. But now I have 3 backups, so this will never happen again. Shout out Bardo Bloom for that dope intro music. Once again, we'll link him in the show notes below, his SoundCloud. Absolutely awesome. Raising the vibes of DAO Talk. Frisson, it's good to see you. How have you been?
I've been good, just adjusting to dad life. You can probably hear West a little bit in the background. Hopefully he's quiet. But, he's got a little fever going. So I didn't get a lot of sleep last night. But that's okay. I'm here. I'm ready to rock. I'm ready for DAO Talk. Let's go.
Against the odds, he comes in to bring you your weekly down news. You know him and you love him. It's going to be a great time today.
They say like when you have a kid, right? You everything becomes harder and you have to be able to like get stuff done, even though you also are taking care of a kid and unexpected stuff comes up. They call that dad energy or dad strength. So I'm hoping to be able to develop that. We'll see.
Big dad energy. I'm amazed each week with what Frisson is able to do with a little baby the entire time. I'm just chilling at home by myself. Single. I have a dog. That's about it. Just vibing.
Did y'all hear that? Tommy's signal?
No.
Is he the most eligible bachelor in Web3? Could be. I think actually there should be like a Web3 dating reality show. Someone definitely needs to make that.
Yeah, there's been a lot of talk recently around the secret forces behind all the dating apps and how they're all owned by like these massive corporations. And I've just been thinking about it recently because it's like a hot topic in my like age group and friends of like dating apps and how much they fucking suck. Like maybe we need to do like some sort of like dating DAO, some sort of dating app DAO where, I don't know. I've just had this idea running around in my head where we get everyone together and we figure out a different way to interact, a different way to find love and relationships. I mean, it goes beyond more than just relationships, but friendships as well. So I don't know. We'll see how that goes. But we digress. Let's jump right into the weekly DAO news. We've been talking a lot about governance tokens. We've not been kind to them over the months that DAO Talk has existed. However, this tweet is a pretty interesting take on the subject of projects needing tokens. So I'm just going to read the first tweet, and then Frisson, you can kind of give us an overview of the rest of the thread. It is, let's see, like a 10 plus tweet thread. It reads from user 0x Doug, great username. Yes, it probably does need a token. In air quotes. Recently, it's become fashionable in crypto circles to be critical of the app layer governance tokens. Builders are encouraged to build public good and carefully think twice whether adding a token is really necessary. This is PsyOps. So, Frisson, why is this a PsyOps?
Yeah. So the reality is that tokens are like a unique property of building in crypto and Web3, and people really like them. It creates kind of like a shelling point around, your project or protocol. That can have upsides and downsides, right? Like, I think it's really important for, apps or DAOs or applications that create tokens to, be really careful about how they communicate the token, right? Like there's a lot of tokens out there that are just like, people call everything a scam, right? In crypto, but like there are tokens that are actually, scams where it's like not decentralized at all. And there's like, the team is working behind the scenes to manipulate the price. By the way, all of that is securities fraud. So don't do that, or you might go to prison. Also, it's not the right thing to do for your community. But yeah, thoughtful tokens where they're used properly for governance. For example, to help run your DAO on chain, like we see a lot of projects doing on Tally, where there's like appropriate token distribution, where it's sort of you have a reasonable claim to decentralization. And then even better, if you can sort of build the token into the ecosystem of like using the protocol in any sort of meaningful way, that really creates an opportunity to, to drive attention to your project. Like, it's pretty difficult to go to market in crypto in a lot of ways because a lot of traditional advertising channels, right, they don't really work or exist. And this idea of like having a community and an ecosystem built around a token is actually like by far the most established sort of like marketing or go-to-market channel that exists in crypto. And we've talked about why sort of governance is necessary. We referenced the article that Vitalik wrote last year about why governance of apps and why on-chain governance is actually needed. Most apps are not like Ethereum where it's forkable and people can sort of dissent from this, decisions that are made by not actually like forking in the change or forking the change out of their implementation of the protocol. Most DeFi protocols, like you can't fork them, right? So a good example here is Maker. There's X amount of assets that are in the Maker protocol. And if you fork the protocol, only one of the two forks can those assets have economic value, like the DAI and the USDC that is in the forked version of the Maker protocol. Like you haven't just doubled the value, right? Like only one of the two can be honored. And so, you really have to drive explicit consensus from the community in some way to make upgrades and changes. And that's what on-chain governance is for. So tokens, can be a powerful force multiplier and go to market function and community building function for Web3 apps and protocols. And they also have like a real use case, which is governance. So I think there's some other stuff in here from Doug that kind of hints at like the idea that protocols should try to have business models. So I think like there's in many ways like different views in crypto and Web3 about how we should approach apps and protocols as economic entities. So, for example, our friend Chiron, who has come on DAO Talk and is a member of Content Guild and friend of Tally, like he really believes in this vision of public goods where you don't necessarily have to create like profit extracting business models in order to incentivize people to build. Instead, you can use public goods funding mechanisms to fund work that is, valuable and economically meaningful. But there are other people who kind of disagree and think that's like not actually a sustainable source of like incentivization and funding in the space. And instead, in order to like continue to incentivize people to build the applications we need, there needs to be some sort of ability at the end of the day to generate sustainable profit from a protocol. So that's an open debate as well, but I think you can kind of like read into where Doug falls on that side of things. In the tweet thread. So lots of interesting topics that I think are really important and obviously relate to DAOs and governance that are explored in this thread.
Yeah, this is a great tweet to start with because it kind of explores a theme that we're going to go through the rest of the episode, at least for the beginning, is this idea of like, you said capitulation before we started, but this idea of just like this, I mean, we've had the narrative too, the forever on DAO Talk around like maybe not the narrative, but we've just talked a lot around the negativity around governance tokens. And like you said, like securities fraud and rugging and manipulation of things that shouldn't be manipulated and the downfalls of governance. Vitalik's talked a lot about that as well. And I feel like this episode's kind of maybe not coming full circle, but just giving the other side of the story here and kind of fully understanding, what's the purpose of governance tokens. I think understanding what is the purpose of them, like you talked about,
Yeah, it's really interesting. In crypto, any idea that gets tried and explored, it seemingly it seems to have this moment where it explodes, and then there's just like a lot of BS that gets built around it. So take a topic like NFTs or a topic like governance tokens, right? It's like there's something really interesting there at the core, but then it blows up and people basically try to create as many possible ways to use it. Some of them are bad ideas. Other people are just like grifting on top of the idea, right? But then what is ultimately interesting is after this idea has sort of like ridden the escalator up. So for governance tokens, this would be around like DeFi summer in 2020. It's sort of like the elevator's gone all the way up. It's this explosive, super popular idea. People are abusing it. People are implementing it in ways that don't make any sense. It then takes the elevator ride back down. Right. And this is like inevitably what happens in crypto with ideas or like individual projects, industry sectors. The question though is what happens after the elevator ride back down, right? So in crypto, like most projects by count that do that, they stay, the elevator goes down to the parking garage and then they stay down there in the parking garage and die like a moldy death, right? But there's sort of like this special group of ideas and assets and projects in crypto that like it goes all the way down to the parking garage, but then there's actually something there, right? And it comes back up onto like the second floor and we build out again going forward. And so I think governance tokens are a really good example of this. Like there is a very good reason that they exist. There's a good reason that governance exists in, crypto and in protocols. It's just, not everything that it was cracked up to be during the food farming days, which is totally okay.
Moving right into that same subject, but, kind of more like actual examples of like, what we just talked about is a tweet from Ameen, who is the founder of Rye and the early Ethereum dev. ETH only Rye was a mistake. The ETH staking yield means that borrowing Rye against pure ETH will always have some percentage opportunity cost. The Rye redemption rate should always be negative to reflect this opportunity cost. Decentralization is expensive. People don't want to pay. And then he follows it up. If the Rye team, mostly me, hadn't been all in on ungovernance, adding staked ETH as collateral would be easy. Instead, the only option for adding staked ETH is fully restarting Rye. That is a lot more work for devs and coordination costs for the community. Ungovern at your own risk. Thoughts, Frisson?
Yeah, first of all, shout out to Ameen, also a previous DAO Talk guest, for being willing to humble himself with this tweet, because Ameen has really strong opinions and like he went on this whole meme of ungovernance. I think he had some disagreements with the direction that Dai took, which is kind of what led to the origin of Rye. And like Dai and Maker is famous for just having like huge amounts of governance. Like they're famous for these just like really long forum posts that are impossible to read and just drama and people adding assets, delisting assets and getting compensated and getting uncompensated and all this stuff, right? And it creates like some centralization vectors and risks. And so, and the Reflexer team had this vision for like a very simple stable coin where the only asset backing it is ETH, which means it just like drastically reduces the surface area for censorship or even like unexpected, depegging or like, rugging of like the assets that back the stable coin, because ETH is sort of like the most trustless, most pure, lowest technical risk, lowest censorship resistant asset in my opinion in crypto, but certainly in the like Ethereum ecosystem. And so they had this vision, right? But it turns out there's like some significant problems with that. And one of them is that it's sort of with the like Reflexer and Rye were created prior to sort of the full proliferation of Ethereum staking. They're created prior to the merge and ETH's migration to proof of stake. And with this migration to proof of stake and the upcoming ability to withdraw your ETH from proof of stake, which is going to happen in Q1 or early Q2 of this year, there's going to be this shift towards liquid staking assets as a like collateral type in DeFi, where you can put your ETH in and stake it and then get a yield on that ETH, but also have liquidity by using like a liquid staking asset that's sort of accruing the yield from the ETH that you staked. And in DeFi, like it's very attractive to use this sort of like stake ETH asset, because in addition to having the ETH, you're also accruing the yield, and then you're putting that potentially into like a productive ecosystem like like a MakerDAO or an Aave, where you can also like earn yield or borrow against your staked ETH, right? So it's like more economically efficient to sort of like use the staked version of ETH instead of ETH. It comes with additional trust assumptions and security risk and stuff like that, but fundamentally like adds economic efficiency. And so like Ameen is basically saying like it's going to kill us if we can't actually use staked ETH, because like no one's going to want to leave their staked ETH in the reflexer protocol, and it's ultimately going to create a dynamic where we sort of like constantly have to have a negative interest rate against DAI, which I'm not going to go into the whole detail of how RAI works, but basically it creates a dynamic where you sort of want to be like shorting RAI constantly. And so that's not something that will sort of lead to like further reduction in market share of RAI. And that's something that just like, it's kind of untenable for the protocol going forward. But because Ameen went down this path of like ungovernance, there's not actually a way to add collateral types. Like it's not possible to add collateral types to the like existing RAI and reflexer smart contracts because they made that decision up front. And so this is why we have on-chain governance. This is why we have governance tokens. This is why protocols, should be upgradable in a lot of cases, or there should be an ability to make changes to, your smart contracts, even if it's in like a maximally sort of decentralized, trustless, and automated way. And so, this is me sort of being like, hey, I was wrong, which I really respect, but also like is something I think we're all sort of realizing, right? It's like, people took governance tokens too far, but it turns out they do exist for a reason.
Is reflexer a DAO? Or like when you say like, Ameen is coming out saying, if I wasn't so adamant about ungovernance, or I kind of just answered my question, then it could have been fixed. So like, what is the like solution here for reflexer?
They do actually have some governance because they use an oracle. They use a Chainlink oracle to like understand the current price of USD, and that kind of feeds into their overall mechanism design. So like that's the other thing is like even while he was sort of striving for maximum on governance, they did end up having to implement some governance into the protocol as it was, right? They just that's the only thing you can change, I think, is the oracle that is being used in the protocol. And you can't change the collateral asset type.
Exactly. And this tweet goes hand in hand with that. And I lost it. And this tweet goes hand in hand with that from chainlinkgod. You just mentioned Chainlink. If your DApp has a non-zero risk of becoming insolvent, then pure immutability is insanity. This is why AMM DEXs are typically immutable, while money markets and derivative platforms are typically not. Risk parameters need to be managed by someone as market conditions change. And then Ameen followed up to this tweet, which is funny because we just talked about Ameen before. Don't forget oracles. Anything reliant on oracle should also maintain the ability to swap them out for a backup in case they are compromised or defunct. Same topic. Frisson, thoughts on this?
Yeah, so this is just another example of a use case for having your certain aspects of your protocol be upgradable or changeable using decentralized, trustless on-chain governance and governance tokens. In this case, if you take as an example a borrow-lend protocol like Aave, they have a certain number of collateral types that they're kind of making a market around and acting as a bank for, where the protocol can determine the interest rate to borrow and also the interest rate that's paid out to people who are depositing that asset into Aave. And, crypto is a very dynamic environment where asset prices can change massively over very short periods of time, either just due to like a change in the supply demand equation for that asset, or like a massive hack, or attempted price manipulation. And so that's another reason that you want to have governance. You don't want to have to like constantly change protocol parameters, but you want to be able to. In the case where, as Aave, you're acting as this like automated bank, and something in like the asset and liability like equation in the protocol kind of gets thrown off, you might need to make a correction using governance to make sure there isn't excessive debt that's built up that's not fulfillable and creates an insolvency situation in the protocol. So it's just another like very clear example of where governance and governance tokens hopefully implemented on chain in a maximum, like as decentralized way as possible is very necessary for a lot of these products.
We do a little governance token PR in this podcast for anyone that's said we are too harsh on them. I don't know if anyone's ever said that, but we do a little positive energy here.
Yeah, shout out to governance tokens. They've taken a lot of hate. They've taken hate from Vitalik. They've taken hate from Kobe. They've taken hate from crypto Twitter generally. But it's one of those things, right? Like this is how I think about DAOs generally. It's like, is the current implementation of DAOs optimal? No. Is any DAO perfect? No. Are governance tokens perfect currently? No. Is on-chain governance perfect currently? No. Are there problems to solve? Yes. But ultimately, like the reason that it has survived and will continue to thrive going forward, DAOs, like on-chain DAOs and on-chain governance in general, is because it's actually necessary. Like it's not like a meme where everyone was like, cool, we should make DAOs, and that's why they're still alive in this, in this bear market. And that's why like Tally is still growing through this bear market. It's because there actually isn't a better way to manage like a protocol or an application or funds on chain through multiple people, right? It's just like fundamentally you need to like coordinate around a protocol, or you need to coordinate around treasury, and like on-chain governance it's not just the best way to do it. It's like the only way to do it. Yeah. That's legitimate at all. Right. And I think that's what we're seeing. Yeah.
I mean, something I always said was like, I get the shitting on it, and Vitalik was good about providing possible solutions, and I get it's Twitter, and Twitter is the point of it is just to have a hot take and, not really do anything else. But like you said, it is literally the only way. Like, yeah, governance tokens and shit has its downsides, and there's been a lot of, bad press around it and scams that have been enabled by governance tokens. But like you said, there's literally no other way, right? This is the way we're going to have to do it, and we're going to have to build and learn along the way. Like previous tweets we've talked about, like be malleable, admit when you're wrong, and just commit to building a better future. Something we've talked about from the beginning of the podcast since we started it in the bear market is we're going to learn, we're going to make mistakes, but we're just going to keep growing. And that's as simple as that.
The question isn't, do DAOs exist or will they exist? The question is, how do we make them better?
Yeah.
Right? How can we make them more decentralized, more fair, more open, more stable and secure, right? Like how can we focus on, how can we do those things versus being like putting our heads in the sand and saying like DAOs are a mistake, right? Like they just are, they're how, as I like to say, like they're how we do stuff together on Ethereum, and we just gotta like work together as a community to make them better.
Yeah, and we need to get off the like existential DAO thought take vibe, which I think we've just been like unintentionally doing the past few months, which is good. Like we kind of just moved towards, like you said, hey, there's not a question of if or when or the future. It's they're here. Let's figure out how to do it the best way. Like you said, it's just us doing stuff together. Like we don't need to complicate it, like divert that energy somewhere else. So, all right. Enough governance token deep thought takes on DAOs. Let's move to some not hot take news, but some rapid fire news. Aave, or Avraham Eisenberg, who we have talked about previously on the show, he's been a part of multiple hacks from on-chain protocols. Particularly, we talked about the Mango Markets hack, which was a Solana DAO, I believe, where he like exploited the I don't even exactly remember how he did it. Bottom line is he basically published his entire like process about how he hacked it, and he believed, and he was always tweeting about how this is ethical. It was in the code. I can do it. Blah blah blah. The SEC has charged him, and I believe he was arrested like pre 2023. I think he was arrested and they just officially charged him, and now he's in a federal prison waiting transport to New York City. So my take is if you're going to hack something, don't dox yourself and then boast about it on Twitter. Frisson, thoughts?
Yeah. So Mango Market is sort of like the Aave, or was sort of like the Aave of Solana. And they had made some really poor choices about their overall mechanism design, and in particular, some assets that they allowed as, collateral assets on the platform. We just talked about how sort of this is dangerous, right? Because price can be very volatile in crypto. And basically this guy, Avraham Eisenberg, was able to break Mango Markets by like manipulating the price of one of the assets that was available in the protocol. And kind of worked his way from there into sort of like securing a huge percent of the Mango token supply. And then bragged about it. And the thing is, like, people think like, oh, crypto assets aren't stocks, so I can do whatever I want. And that's like incredibly untrue. Price manipulation is illegal, like, period. Like, personally, like, manipulating the price of an asset in order to like achieve a market outcome is like illegal. And also, it's not entirely clear from like a legal perspective that all of these assets are not in fact like securities. And what happens when stuff like this happens, which is what we're seeing here with the announcement from the SEC, is like they see this sort of like slam dunk case against Avraham Eisenberg because he like committed financial crimes and bragged about them. And they're like, okay, cool. We're going to prosecute this too and use it as our angle to be like, we get to prosecute this guy also because Mango is a security. Right. And that's their way of trying to like sort of get precedent for some of these crypto assets being securities, like, into the case law. So that's like one reason it's interesting from a DAO perspective is like, as this case plays out, like, I think there will be arguments and evidence presented as to like why Mango is or isn't a security. And so that's like something, we'll definitely be watching for going forward.
Yeah, I'll be watching this and keeping you updated on all of this. Interesting. We'll link the SEC official like charge report in the show notes. Go check that out. It's not super long. It's pretty easy to read. But and I'll link the episode where we talked about the original hack because I think we had some interesting takes on that one. All right, moving along. Stani of Lens Protocol and Aave Gov to activate v 3.0.1 on Ethereum mainnet Frisson. Quick summary of this.
Yeah, this is a big deal in the DeFi space. And it's another example of a protocol upgrade occurring via DAO governance, which has been a theme of this episode. So Aave v3, it's basically like a much more capital efficient way to run an on-chain borrow lend market. They're rolling it out. So, hopefully it will be a big like product upgrade to Aave and like a really exciting, protocol upgrade change that is happening through governance. As a side note, Aave is one of the few, on-chain DAOs that we don't currently support on Tally, that doesn't use Tally, and that's because of some like differences or like customizations that were made in their sort of their governance that aren't like supported in I guess like our implementation or our support of the Open Zeppelin governor standard, but hopefully that changes because like the Aave is a great example of like a DAO that is it perfect? No, but are they running the protocol in like a legitimately decentralized way? Yes. And so excited to pay closer attention to Aave and cover them more closely going forward on DAO Talk.
Yeah. Almost all of the big DAOs support on Tally and run on Tally. And now I believe continue to stay on that trend moving forward. We'll get to Tally news in a second. A few more things before we get to that. 2023 is going to be insane. Staking withdrawals go live very soon. Proto Danksharding, my favorite name in all of crypto. Proto Danksharding goes live, making rollups extremely cheap to use. Rollups will mature, and we will hopefully see the first decentralized rollups. Personally, very excited for attempts at improving governance. Virgin, for those that are, even if they listen to DAO Talk and maybe they think I didn't speak English right there, can you give just like a brief overview of each of these things and why people should care about them in the DAO world?
Yeah, I'll do that, but I'm going to spend most of my time on the final two, which is decentralized rollups and improving governance, because they're very relevant to DAOs and Tally. So staking withdrawals go live. I already talked about that. ETH switched to proof of stake. Now you can stake ETH and earn a return, and you get some of the transaction fees occurring to you as well as the issuance. But the ability to withdraw your staked ETH was not included in the merge, just because they tried to like scope out anything that wasn't like 100% necessary, so they actually get it out. So that, which is sort of like the final piece of Ethereum proof of stake, is going live soon, which is going to have huge implications for this whole idea of like liquid staking derivatives, which we talked about earlier. Proto Danksharding is sort of this way to make fees on rollups like Arbitrum and Optimism much cheaper. Right now, they sort of like compete in the same market for a block space as other applications on Ethereum L1. And this idea of Proto Danksharding, which is also called EIP 4844, is to create this sort of separate market for rollup block space where they can, it's like a special type of data storage and verification on Ethereum that should make it like 10x to 100x cheaper to operate a rollup, which is very exciting, sort of potentially getting us into the space where like you can use rollups for like actually high scale things where the transactions basically need to be free. And then, rollups will mature and we'll hopefully see the first decentralized rollups. So Arbitrum and Optimism, which are like the two general purpose rollups that are like fully live and used by the public today, they're actually not very decentralized yet. They, still have like admin keys and multi-sigs that like control the upgrade, the potential upgrades to the rollups, as opposed to having sort of this like trustless, decentralized governance process like with Aave that we just talked about. And there's just like a number of different areas where there's sort of like small group control or centralized control over protocol operation. Optimism has a token and they have sort of like social signaling, but they're just now getting ready to roll out actual on-chain governance for Optimism. And Arbitrum doesn't have like a DAO yet. And so like there's this sort of whole process of like rollups decentralizing themselves, which is like very exciting, and also something that like we're really hoping will lead to sort of like some new big DAOs that we can support on Tally. And it's not just Optimism and Arbitrum, it's all the ZK rollups that are coming, like Scroll, which is where Swaggy, the person who wrote this, works, and Starknet and ZK Sync and the Polygon L2s, right? So hopefully we'll see this like new category of DAOs. Like rollups, they're kind of like DeFi protocols where they need to have governance because you can't fork them, right? If you try to like fork the state of a rollup, like you would have to actually fork Ethereum L1 as well, and so it doesn't have that same like base layer sort of forkability, and so you need that you need that on-chain governance to actually like generate social consensus around the state. So really excited for what's coming from like an L2 decentralization and DAO perspective over the course of this year. And then like it's kind of like this idea of improving governance, right? It's like it's here to stay. How can we improve it? So super excited to see this, and I'm right on board with this vibe from Swaggy.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like we've heard the year, like 2022 is supposed to be the year of the L2, the year of the roll-up, but I think we're still waiting for it. So I'm excited for this year. It feels like this will be the year, but maybe not. It's a long run. It's a marathon, not a sprint. All right, 6 reasons why. Let me restart. That was a bad transition. All right, last little hot take before we get to tally news. 6 reasons why DAOs will take over the world. 1, internet native. 2, transparent. 3, contributors first. 4, shared ownership. 5, decentralized decision making. 6, mission driven. Anything to add, Frisson? Anything to add here? I feel like this is a pretty obvious tweet for if you're listening to a podcast about DAOs, or the DAO podcast in the world, because we're number one. But I feel like it was important to add.
Yeah, we've spent most of this podcast talking about the fundamental case for DAOs, almost why they have to exist. This is like the pie in the sky dreaming, like, DAOs don't just exist because like you have to manage a roll up or a DeFi protocol on them, but also because they should exist. Maybe they're better than other traditional meat space ways of collaborating, like corporations or nonprofits, right? Because they're internet native, because they're transparent, because they're contributors first. And this is very aspirational. This is the stuff that people debate about DAOs, right? Like, it's like, oh, cool. Like you want to do all this stuff, but like, are you? And I share this vision too. I think there's a long way to go to like make DAOs work in this way fully. But yeah, I think I'm here for it, Soon more DAOs than companies. Soon TM, like somewhere between 5 and 50 years from now.
I knew you were going to say something like short and then something super long. That's a hot take. More DAOs than companies. Soon TM. Quote Frisson on that. Put it on his gravestone. Maybe it won't even be right when he's dead, but we'll see. All right, moving right along. Tally news. We got a lot of shit from Tally this week. Let's start with a really big feature update, a brand new Explore Delegates page. You can view trending delegates, search for keywords and delegate profiles, analyze voter participation across DAOs. Let's go ahead. We're going to take a look at the ENS DAO and just show you a quick little live version of what it looks like. This is, in my opinion, one of the best features Tally's put out in a long, long time. Not that we haven't been putting out good features, but I fucking love this thing. It's really pretty, really intuitive. You can toggle between leaderboard. You can see the top delegates for the DAO. You can see delegate statements. You can read about, who are these delegates? What are these delegates? What do they stand for? Any past history of other DAOs or projects they're involved in. You can look at an overview. You can just get it. You're really able to get a bird's eye view of who are the delegates of the DAO and who is really, behind the scenes making the decisions in the governance. I think it's really awesome. Frisson, thoughts on this?
Yeah, it's dope.
Yeah, I mean, there's not much to say.
I think delegation has become it's been a growing trend within DAOs, where DAOs will like encourage people to apply to be delegates and manage other people's voting power in the DAO. And Tally is in a really unique position to help push the space of delegation forward, because we kind of have like all of the on-chain DAOs, almost all of them, on Tally, and people sort of use Tally to like participate in governance on those DAOs. So if you're looking at the delegates for a particular DAO like ENS and trying to figure out like how people vote, maybe where you should delegate your tokens, you can not only understand delegate participation in ENS, but also how those people have participated or not participated in governance across all on-chain DAOs. So I think this is going to be like a really popular feature of Tally, and I'm super stoked about it.
Yeah, I love it. Super easy to navigate, super easy to get, the relevant information that you need. And when you're looking at, delegations, it's great after the fact, but it's also going to be really interesting to see, when new DAOs launch and how the delegation process works there. Because I think the only few times I've had to delegate are with like Hop and then ENS back in the day when we got airdrop those tokens. Oh, and Optimism. So, and I remember those experiences being absolutely horrible, especially as, a newer entrant into the space. So Tally making waves.
Yeah, I think right now this explore delegates view is most useful for people who want to like redelegate. Like there's already been some kind of airdrop in the past, right? And you're trying to understand like now what's the current state, which by the way, I think is really important because one of the things that happened with some of these big DAOs that have launched over the past year or so and encouraged delegation is voting participation has been on a slow decline because they did this like one-time campaign, basically like claim your airdrop, delegate. But there hasn't been any sort of like re-elections of delegates. So as a side note, I think that's actually really important that we're sort of providing this visibility and usability even for existing DAOs that have already had a lot of their tokens delegated. But I think going forward, we also have the opportunity to participate and improve that initial delegation process. It's not something Tally's been involved in the past, but I'm hoping that'll be like over the course of this year, we'll see more opportunities for people to like use something like Tally to like make more informed decisions, even at the outset when they're claiming an airdrop or a token on who to delegate their tokens to.
Yeah, improving every step of the way. And that's kind of like low-key what Tally's been doing over the past couple of years is just making the entire process as smooth and as easy as possible. While also allowing power users to, get the hardcore features that they want. So, yeah. All right. Last little bit of news, and then we'll wrap this baby up. DAOs at Denver. It's coming up. A sister event of DAO NYC is happening at Ethereum Denver to be February 28th. There'll be more details coming out around sponsors, how the event will actually function, how to get tickets. But Frisson, I'm really looking forward to this event. I will be there. Frisson will be there. We'll be recording DAO Talk all that week at ETH Denver. And I'm excited to meet a lot of our listeners and, bring these combos in person. Have a great time in Denver, your favorite city. You excited for it?
Hell yeah, dude. Looking forward to seeing everybody in Denver. We're having a little more intimate side event here with DAOs at Denver. It'll be 150 people, completely DAO focused. So keep an eye on the DAOs at Denver Twitter handle if you're looking for ways to get involved.
Absolutely. Staying right along with the DAO theme, DAO Tokyo is coming up soon. They just dropped a little feature with yours truly, with CEO, co-founder of Tally, Denison Bertram, and your favorite DAO personality. Go check that one out. We'll link this in the show notes. So DAO Tokyo is coming up in a few months. If you're going to ETH Tokyo, definitely head on over to DAO Tokyo as well. Another sister event of DAO NYC. And the last piece of news out of Tally, we had an absolutely sick piece of content drop this week from Cool Horse Girl, a friend of DAO Talk, former DAO Talk guest, former DAO Talk guest host when Frisson was out. Title of the article, Title of the article, To DAO or Not to DAO? Must all metaverses be decentralized? This is an eclectic article that I had a lot of fun editing and just reading. It was really interesting. If you're not familiar with Cool Horse Girl, she's one of the more interesting people I've ever talked to in this space and has a very unique voice and is a very good storyteller and communicator when it comes to DAOs and kind of bridging those two things together. Tweet reads, what do Roblox, Walmart, and Club Penguin all have to do with DAOs? You have to go read the article to find out. It's a pretty short read, but it's a good one. Great stuff coming out of the Tally blog this week and more coming next week. As always, go subscribe to the DAO Talk newsletter, which will come out when this episode comes out, which would be tomorrow or today. If you're listening to this on a Friday, we record this on a Thursday. DAOTalk.substack.com. Go join the growing audience we have over there and get this written version of this podcast in your inbox every Friday. It's a great time. It's a lot easier to read. It's super sassy. It's fun. It's funny. I like having some fun with that one, and you can get some memes in there as well. Otherwise, I will see you next week, Frisson. It's been an honor, and we'll see you next week for episode 33 of DAO Talk Weekly, my friends. Peace.
Peace.